They say death comes equally to everyone, but sometimes death's connection with a person runs so deep that it doesn't end with their life. It makes them remembered for centuries. Today's story takes us to Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, and to its most dangerous serial killer, Diogo Alves. A name that sent more than 70 people to their deaths, a criminal who was executed in 1841, and a killer whose head is still preserved in a glass jar at the University of Lisbon's Medical Museum. Imagine the world 180 years ago. People dressed differently, spoke differently, had different hairstyles, and yet when you see the preserved head of Diogo Alves, it feels as if he is still alive today. His eyes, his facial expression, everything looks just the same as it did in the final moments before his execution. Diogo Alves was born in Spain, but in search of work he moved to Portugal. The city was big, the opportunities seemed promising, but luck never favored him. As he wandered from place to place looking for a job, he realized that some people lived comfortably by committing petty crimes. At first, he followed the same path, robbery, theft, but over time, his greed grew. He realized that petty crimes would never make him powerful. In Lisbon stood a massive aqueduct, the Aqueduto das Águas Livres. It towered about 213 feet high. This aqueduct was a lifeline for farmers. After a long day in the fields, they would cross it to bring their produce into the city, sell it, and then return home in the evening with money in their pockets. Diogo turned it into his personal hunting ground. His method was cunning. He would wait to see which farmer was the last one to cross the aqueduct, walking alone. As soon as his target appeared, he would pounce, first robbing them of their earnings, then throwing them over the edge. Imagine falling from 213 feet. There was no chance of survival. At first, the villagers couldn't understand what was happening. Bodies of farmers were found under the aqueduct, no knife wounds, no signs of struggle. It seemed as though the farmers had taken their own lives. The police believed the same thing. They assumed the farmers, crushed by poverty and debt, were committing suicide. But the truth was far darker. Diogo Alves was striking a deadly bargain with death every night. Slowly, the number of missing farmers grew. 100, 200, 300, and eventually more than 350 were gone. Some accounts suggest he threw over 2,000 people from the aqueduct. However, evidence confirmed him guilty of at least 70 murders. When the situation got out of hand, the authorities shut down the aqueduct. And suddenly, the disappearances stopped. For 3 years, Diogo remained quiet, but his addiction, his hunger for crime, pulled him back in. This time, he didn't act alone. He gathered a gang of petty criminals, armed them, and began targeting the homes of the wealthy. Now, Diogo and his crew didn't just rob, they slaughtered entire families with brutal violence. One day, Diogo set his sights on a well-known doctor in Lisbon. He thought, this time, I'll catch a big fish. With his gang, he broke into the doctor's house. Inside, they brutally murdered all 4 people present with knives. But this time, fate turned against him. News of the killings reached the police within half an hour. The city was sealed off. The police searched everywhere and arrested around 45 suspects. Under interrogation, the truth came out, and so did the name, Diogo Alves. He confessed that he was the one who had thrown farmers from the aqueduct. He admitted to being responsible for more than 70 murders. Lisbon was shaken. Portugal was in shock. In February 1841, Diogo Alves was put on trial. The public was furious. The court had no choice. He was sentenced to death. But the real story begins here. At that time, a science was rapidly gaining ground in Europe, phrenology. It was the study of the human skull and brain. Scientists believed that a person's criminal thoughts, their habits, their very nature could be read from the shape of their skull. For them, Diogo Alves was the perfect specimen. In February 1841, Diogo Alves was executed. Right after his hanging, his head was severed. Like the ancient Egyptians, a special preservative compound was applied to keep it from decaying. Then it was placed inside a glass jar. 180 years have passed, but the face of Diogo Alves still looks the same. The hair, the half-open eyes, the cold, expressionless face. At the University of Lisbon's Department of Medical Science, his head still sits in that jar. Anyone can go and see it. The face of the killer who claimed more than 70 innocent lives. In Portugal's history, Diogo Alves is remembered as its most dangerous serial killer. Ironically, by the time of his trial, Portugal had already abolished the death penalty, but his crimes were so horrific that he was still executed, making him the last person in Portugal ever to be executed. Cyprus, a small island in the Mediterranean Sea. Its population isn't very large, but its history is full of conflicts. At times it was under British rule, at times caught between Greece and Turkey. Since 1963, people of Greek origin and people of Turkish origin clashed repeatedly. The situation got so bad that the United Nations had to send in peacekeeping forces. In 1974, things turned even worse when Turkey invaded, and the island was split into two parts, Greek Cyprus in the south, Turkish Cyprus in the north. Amid this chaos, hundreds of people went missing. It's said that between 1964 and 1974, nearly 1,200 people disappeared. Families searched for years but found no trace. Among those who vanished was a young man, Ahmed Herguner. He was of Turkish origin but lived in Cyprus. He was involved in the political struggle, actively participating in protests and movements. On June 10, 1974, Ahmed left with two of his friends and never returned. His sister searched everywhere, pleaded with authorities, but nothing came of it. Then, in 2011, some researchers reached a mountainous region in Cyprus. There they noticed something strange, a fig tree. Now, in that region, fig trees simply don't grow. It was considered impossible. So the question arose, how did this tree get here? Curiosity pulled the researchers deeper. They discovered that the tree's roots were coming out of a cave. The cave was sealed off, lying in a barren area. The mystery deepened. The team began digging around the cave, and what they found shocked everyone. Inside the cave were 3 skeletons. One of them lay directly beneath the tree's roots. DNA testing was carried out. The government of Cyprus already had DNA samples from the families of the missing. The test confirmed that one of the skeletons belonged to Ahmed Herguner. It matched with his sister's DNA. After 37 years, the truth had finally come out. Investigations revealed that Ahmed and his 2 friends had hidden inside that cave during the conflict. Greek rebels somehow found out. They planted dynamite at the cave's entrance and blew it up. All 3 were trapped and killed, but the blast left a hole in the cave's ceiling through which sunlight began to pour in. And here comes the miracle of nature. Before his death, Ahmed had eaten a fig. A fig seed remained in his stomach. With light and moisture seeping into the cave, that seed sprouted, grew, and slowly turned into a large fig tree. Imagine that. A young man lost his life, but from his body, new life emerged. That tree still stands there today as almost like a living testimony. Government of Cyprus later turned the site into a memorial. People visit, see the tree, take photographs. Locals call it the tree born from a corpse. And it wasn't just about Ahmed. Efforts were made to find thousands of other missing people too. Excavations were carried out at nearly 2,000 sites. From these, 890 skeletons were recovered. The rest remain unaccounted for. Ahmed's story became unique because his case wasn't solved by an official committee, but by a group of students and researchers. A fig tree sparked their curiosity, and step by step, a 37-year-old secret was uncovered. When Ahmed's sister was given the news, her eyes filled with tears. She said, "On June 10, 1974, my brother left home. We searched everywhere, but he never returned. After 37 years, we received nothing but his bones. Still, it brings some peace. At least the truth has finally come out." This incident took place on January 4th, 1996. On the outskirts of Bangalore, a man called the police and reported that there was a body lying there. A police team rushed to the spot. When they arrived, they found a corpse. At first glance, it was clear that the body did not belong to an Indian, but to a foreign national. However, there were no belongings with the body that could help establish its identity. The police took custody of the body and sent it for postmortem. Later, from the foreigner's clothes, they found only one thing, a bill from a shop. The police went to that shop and showed the bill to the manager. Based on the bill, the shop owner confirmed that yes, a foreigner had visited the previous day and purchased items there. It was his bill. From this clue, the police were able to obtain the deceased's name and address. The man was identified as James William Stewart, a British national. As soon as the police learned that the deceased was a British citizen and that he had been murdered, the news reached the British Embassy and other authorities. This was a case involving the murder of a foreign tourist. For Bangalore police, it was a major stain on their reputation, and they were under immense pressure to uncover the truth quickly. The investigation began. Once they knew the victim's name and address, the police also found out where he had been staying in Bangalore. He was lodged at a place called Sudha Lodge. A police team immediately went there. The lodge manager confirmed that Stewart had been staying there, but he was not alone. He had a female companion with him. The police went to their room. The door was locked from the inside. When they knocked, a woman about 27 years old and also a British national opened the door. The moment she saw the police, she broke down, crying uncontrollably. The officers were taken aback. They had come to inform her about her companion's death and to examine the room, but she was sobbing hysterically. Suddenly, through her tears, the woman said she had been raped by an autorickshaw driver. The police were stunned. On one hand, Stewart's body had been found and sent to the morgue. On the other, this woman was alleging rape, and she didn't even know yet that her companion was dead. The police decided not to disclose Stewart's death right away. Instead, they called their senior officers and began recording her statement. She explained that on January 4th, she and Stewart had gone to a nearby restaurant for dinner. Before they could eat, Stewart started feeling unwell, possibly due to food poisoning. He told her he was going back to the lodge and asked her to finish her meal and meet him later. She agreed. After Stewart left, she finished her dinner. When she came out, she couldn't find her way back. She had walked to the restaurant, but now she was lost. She asked a couple of people for directions, but they didn't understand English. Then she spotted an auto driver and asked him to take her to Sudha Lodge. She got in, tired, having eaten, and with the cold night breeze, she dozed off. When she woke up, she realized the auto was not heading toward the lodge, but was instead in a deserted area. Alarmed, she asked the driver to stop. He ignored her. She repeated her demand, but he still didn't stop. Fearing danger, she pulled a small penknife from her bag, a knife she always carried for safety, and warned him that she would stab him if he didn't stop. The driver still didn't listen, so she stabbed him 3 times in the back with the penknife. Furious, he stopped the auto, dragged her out, threw her on the ground, and raped her. Afterward, he fled. The woman fainted for a while. When she regained consciousness, she found herself lying on the road. She walked until she found people and asked for directions to the police station. When she reached the station, only 2 junior constables were present. They spoke only Kannada and couldn't understand her English. She tried explaining about the rape, but they couldn't grasp it. Hearing her repeatedly say Sudha Lodge, they assumed she was lost and directed her there. She eventually returned to the lodge, crying, waiting for her companion who never came back. She had no way of contacting him. This was an era before cell phones were common. Soon after, the police knocked on her door, listened to her story, and learned about the attack. The next morning, Bangalore newspapers carried 2 shocking stories: the murder of a British citizen and the rape of his female companion. The question arose, were these 2 incidents connected, or were they separate? For the police, solving this case was both a challenge and a matter of saving their reputation. A special team was formed. The investigation into Stewart's murder was handed to DCP Praveen Sood, while Inspector B.B. Ashok Kumar was assigned the rape case. The woman was too traumatized to give clear details about the auto driver. Adding to her trauma was the news of Stewart's death, which shattered her further. Inspector Ashok Kumar realized that interrogating her in this state was futile. To win her trust, he took an unusual step. He brought her to his home, introduced her to his wife and daughter, and told her, "Until your friend's killer and your attacker are caught, you can stay here like a family member. You are safe." She stayed with them for 2 days, feeling some comfort. Once calmer, she shared a crucial detail she had previously omitted. She had stabbed the auto driver 3 times in the back with her penknife. He sent his team to more than 100 nursing homes and hospitals in Bangalore to check if anyone had come in on January 4th with stab wounds on the back. At one nursing home, a nurse from Kerala recalled treating a man at night with 3 such injuries. His name, recorded in the register, was Kadiresh, age 28. No address was given. Tracing him in a big city without an address seemed impossible. But Ashok Kumar had another idea. Check RTO, Regional Transport Office records, for an auto registered under the name Kadiresh. The search paid off. They found his registration details and coincidentally, his home was located right behind a police station. The police arrested him and brought him in. To confirm his identity, they prepared a photo lineup. The nurse immediately identified Kadiresh as the man she had treated that night. The case seemed solved, but then came a blow. Orders arrived that the case was being handed over to the CID, then COD, due to diplomatic pressure from the British government. Ashok Kumar's team, which had worked so hard, had to surrender Kadiresh and all case files. The CID interrogated Kadiresh, but unlike regular police, they avoided torture due to media scrutiny of custodial abuse. They tried psychological methods, but he denied everything. With no CCTV, no DNA testing available then, and only the nurse's testimony, evidence was weak. Days passed with no progress. Finally, senior officers decided to return the case to Ashok Kumar's team with one condition: no torture. Back in police custody, Kadiresh remained defiant, convinced there was no evidence against him. Ashok Kumar then adopted a new strategy: build rapport. The team chatted casually with him about life, family, movies, anything but the case. Slowly, he let his guard down. One day, Ashok Kumar casually asked if he drank. Kadiresh replied, "I don't drink liquor, sir, but I do drink beer. If I drink liquor, I talk nonsense." Seizing the opportunity, Ashok Kumar arranged beer for him and discreetly mixed in brandy. After finishing 2 bottles, Kadiresh became intoxicated. Feeling overconfident, he began speaking freely. When asked about that night, he confessed, "Sir, she was a white foreigner. She asked me to take her to the lodge. It was late, and I got bad thoughts. I took her to a deserted spot. She stabbed me from behind, but then I raped her. Earlier too, I had tried such things but failed. This time, I succeeded." This confession was recorded in the station as evidence. Later, in 1998, the court reviewed the recordings and supporting evidence and sentenced Kadiresh to life imprisonment for rape. Ironically, after all the sophisticated methods failed, it was 2 bottles of beer that unlocked his confession. But this solved only half the story. Kadiresh was convicted for rape. By then, the British woman had returned to England. As for James Stewart's murder, it remained unsolved. The 2 incidents had occurred on the same night, but were unrelated. To this day, Stewart's killer is unknown.